Hello, I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing how our positive focus has to do with the Hermetic principle of rhythm and how it deals with alignment and misalignment. If this is something that interests you, stay tuned. In the past video, I discussed the difference between positive focus and negative focus, and how positive thinking is just an outgrowth of a negative focus. So in a negative focus, we focus on the negative. Then we try to control that which we create, because we create that which we focus on. And sometimes, because we don't like what we focus on, we try to get into positive thinking, but this is really just hope, where we're in a pie in the sky magical thinking kind of a way, hoping for something that's not real. Whereas in positive focus, we're actually dealing with what's real here and now, and we're doing something with it, but we're choosing to correct the negative and keep our focus on the positive as it's going. So if we want a desired outcome, everything that aligns with that desired outcome, we are going to give our focus to, even if it's just 1 to 2% of the overall experience. And we're going to keep feeding that positive aspect of alignment until we're getting 100% of what we want all the time. So we're shifting from that which we do not want to that which we do want. And we're doing that through a positive focus. So if we are focusing on abundance, we're only going to focus on those things that align with abundance. And the more we keep focusing on the abundance, the more we're going to get those things. And then the things that we don't like, we use them because they're supposed to be there actually, but we use them as a contrast so that we can then know what we do want and clarify what we do want so that we can then create it with our positive focus. So bad things or things we do not want still happen with a positive focus, but we are able to use them as fuel to clarify our intentions so that we can become even more clear in our logic, even more clear in our creativity. But in a negative focus, we're just focusing on what we do not want, and then we ended up creating more and more of what we do not want. So how does this deal with the Hermetic principle of rhythm? Let me read that to you. The fifth Hermetic principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. And this is from the Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion to and fro, a flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide like ebb and flow, a high tide and low tide. Between the two poles, which exist in accordance with the principle of polarity described a moment ago, there is always an action and a reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking. This is in the affairs of the universe: suns, worlds, men, animals, mind, energy, and matter. This law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. And it is with the latter that the Hermeticists find the understanding of the principle most important. The Hermeticists have grasped this principle, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects in themselves by the use of the appropriate formulas and methods. They apply the mental law of neutralization. They cannot annul the principle or cause it to cease its operation, but they have learned how to escape its effects upon themselves to a certain degree depending upon the mastery of the principle. They have learned how to use it instead of being used by it. In this and similar methods consists the art of the Hermeticists. The master of Hermeticists polarizes himself at the point which he desires to rest, and then neutralizes the rhythmic swing of the pendulum which could tend to carry him to the other pole. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery do this to a certain degree, more or less unconsciously, but the master does this consciously, and by the use of his will, he attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of the masses who are swung backward and forward like a pendulum. This principle and that of polarity have been closely studied by the Hermeticists, and the method of counteracting, neutralizing, and using them form an important part of the Hermetic mental alchemy. So how does this relate to positive focus and negative focus? And so what I'm going to tell you is that there's different frequencies of rhythm. There is the bigger cycles and there are lesser cycles, and there are high frequency cycles and low frequency cycles. And if you look at how frequency and truth relate to one another, if you think of a line as the middle, and that is truth, and then frequency is how dense or how high it is connected or crossing the median line of truth. And the less it crosses the median line of truth, the less the frequency will be. So a high frequency means it's crossing the truth a lot. A low frequency or a dense frequency means that it's not crossing truth a lot. So I'm going to take that and we're going to say that there are natural cycles and there are unnatural cycles. And what we focus on when we focus on the positive is the truth. But what we focus on when we focus on the negative is protecting ourselves. And so when we're protecting ourselves, we're not really as worried about the truth as we are about protecting ourselves. And we are going to just be worried about the negative, and we're going to be focusing on those things. So we're going to cross and intersect truth a lot less frequently than if we are focusing on the positive. So we have to really align ourselves with the truth. We have to align ourselves with a higher order. We have to align ourselves with the positive. And when we have a negative focus, we will be in a form of alignment. But that form of alignment compared to the truth is a misalignment. But that misalignment can literally take on a life of its own. And it's going to be very heavy and it's going to pull you back like gravity. If you have a pattern of interacting in the negative with a negative focus, it is very difficult to see the positive and the benefits and the good things that can come out of something. Because you are so focused on the negative, the gravity of your own thoughts will take you back. So when you think of gravity in the literal sense, with the principle of gravity from a physics perspective, all this is doing is reflecting how we get pulled back by the gravity to the lower, to the misalignment with our thoughts. So if we have a negative focus, the gravity of our negative focus is going to keep us focusing on the negative. And even if we switch over to the positive just for a day, for an hour, for a minute, then the weight of that experience of the old way of relating is going to pull you back. And so it's quite literally, we have to work on our vibration. We have to change our thinking and our thoughts. And we have to start aligning ourselves, our perceptions, with the truth so that we can then get into an alignment of what we do want, rather the misalignment of what we don't want. But even the misalignment of what we don't want is a form of alignment. And I can tell you right now that the way that all the current governments are set up, and the way that world affairs are set up that we can see on television, read in the media, and other things, is completely a negative focus. And there is this giant gravity of fear, giant gravity of guilt, of shame, of all these different negative emotions, because we have allowed ourselves to align with the deception, to align with misalignment itself. So our alignment is misalignment. And to get back into alignment takes a very profound amount of effort to realign our thoughts and focus on the positive. A lot of this takes shadow work. We have to do a lot of shadow work to deconstruct our erroneous thinking and to help ourselves understand why we are thinking the way we are, feeling the way we are, and behaving the way we are. It takes a profound amount of being the observer to neutrally observe oneself in these patterns of denseness, of deception, of self-deception, and being able to recognize the self-deception through the fog of this gravity that is pulling us back down into misalignment. So that is one of the reasons for shadow work. But on the other side, we do need to start focusing also on the positive and finding those things that are aligned with our highest good. and really focusing on them and exercising our strength of will to do that. Strength of will alone is not going to be good enough. You have to start deconstructing all of the deceptions that you tell yourself so that you can break free from this false gravity that is keeping us bound to this lack of truth, to the deception. But another thing that really keeps us pegged in is our shame. So the next question might be, what is the cause of shame? Is shame a cause, or is shame an effect? Shame is an effect of negative focus. However, it is also the cause of perpetuating negative focus. So we have a negative focus, and our negative focus takes us to those things that we do not want. And we do not want them because it makes us feel unsafe, it makes us feel unfree. And we keep trying to control it, but we're now focused on the negative, and then we're trying to create the life we want by focusing on the negative, and then we're going to keep getting the negative. Shame is, I am unable to be something. I'm unable to be a creator again. On the duality to unity feelings wheel, pride and shame are a duality. And when you combine them together and you get into the positive focus, they becomes creativity. But when we lack creativity, we're either proud and arrogant, or we are ashamed. And shame is therefore the effect of a negative focus. But this negative focus now in the shame keeps us going. Now our ego is there to defend us against our shame. We don't want to feel the shame anymore. It's very dense. It's very heavy. It hurts so bad to feel it. Or this inability to be something, this inability to be a creator, this inability to co-create effortlessly with those we love. And we have to, because of our shame, we can either go into pride and arrogance, and then we dominate and we trick and we manipulate, or we just stay in our shame and we don't get much of anything done. In fact, shame literally stops our creativity. We're unable to be creative. So if you look at sex between two partners, after a certain amount of time of being together, they get much closer to each other. But because they're much closer to each other, they start showing each other's shame more and more and more. And this shame becomes very heavy. And because there's no way to really do anything with that shame without switching to a positive focus, they can start blaming each other. They can start saying, well, you don't treat me right. They start protecting themselves from each other. Maybe they're protecting themselves and that's why they don't have sex. Or maybe they're trying to protect themselves and that's why they try to have sex. But one way or another, there is this protectiveness that is going on because of the shame. This feeling of, I am not able to be something I once was, creator, creative. And because they're not able to be creative, they're no longer having sex. And then they have to find a new partner to have sex with. But even that, after a certain amount of time, is going to get old and it's going to diminish creativity because you cannot run away from yourself fast enough. You will always catch up with yourself. So you cannot act yourself out of this. And in fact, if we think about guilt now, guilt is the attempt to act ourselves out of shame. So we feel this shame, we don't know what to do with it. So then we try to act ourselves out of it. So let's say one of the partners cheats on their other partner. Now they're going to feel guilty because they're trying to act themselves out of their shame. But all they're doing is now creating guilt. So guilt is a side effect of shame because now you're trying to act yourself back to where you once were as a creator. And some people might get some kind of a rhythm from this. They might get some kind of a form of creativity from running from themselves and acting themselves into a certain type of behavior. But this is just creating more and more self-deception. So they're becoming more and more aligned with deception, more and more aligned with the lie. So what we really need to do is we need to deconstruct our self-deceptions. We need to stop blaming other people for our shame, especially when all they are doing, those that are closest to us, are showing us our shame. And we need to start focusing on those positive things, the alignments, the truth. We need to learn what truth is. We need to build in the truth. And truth is not one-dimensional. Truth is something that is multi-layered. It is a puzzle that is put together layer by layer. It's a multi-dimensional puzzle. And the more that we put this multi-dimensional puzzle together, the more we start viewing the reality as it is. We start seeing the truth. We start seeing nature. We start seeing what is natural. And that is the truth. But what is unnatural is our deceptions. What is unnatural is how we deceive ourselves to avoid our shame. What is unnatural is the guilt that we incur because we're trying to avoid our shame. Now, somebody might say, well, I'm just not going to feel the shame anymore. I'm going to love everybody. I'm going to revel in my body. I'm going to revel in creativity. I'm going to revel in sexuality. And then they go in and they indulge themselves. But they're not really getting rid of anything. All they've decided is to run from their shame and go into guilt. Again, not getting away from anything, just running away. So from this is also why child molestation happens. Because a child is very innocent and pure. And to get out of shame, people will do what's called shame transference. And they have so much shame, so much toxic shame embedded in who they are that they have to lash out. They have to attack. They have to sacrifice somebody that is more pure than themselves to project their shame onto them so that they can no longer feel it for a moment. But this is not sustainable. They have to continue to consume energy of purity, the energy of those things that are pure, to sacrifice other living beings. Even if they're not killing them, it's actually preferable that they keep them alive in some cases so that they can then keep transferring onto these beings, onto these people, their own shame. And this is what a lot of marriages are. This is what a lot of parents do with their children. This is what a lot of the rituals that cults do. They are transferring shame onto other beings that are more pure than themselves. This is what human sacrifice is all about. And this is even what animal sacrifice is about. It's about shame transference. Because everybody's trying to get away from their shame. But shame is an effect of a negative focus. If we could focus on the positive, when I say the positive, those things that we do want, and then correct those things that we do not want, to gain clarity from those things that we do not want, and then really continue to focus on the positive and the beneficial, we would never have to deal with shame, and we wouldn't need to transfer our shame. We wouldn't have to project it onto others to escape it. In this way, we can be extremely powerful because we do not need other beings to avoid our pain. We do not need other beings to be whole. So for example, and I gave this example with walking my dog in the last video. In a positive focus, I'm walking my dog and she's by my side. And when you first get a dog, they're a little wild. They're a little crazy. They're kind of chaotic. They're going to do what they want to do. And it's your job to bring them into alignment with you, to what you want, because you are the creator. And so when you're walking with your animal, you can focus on all those things you do not want, the misalignments, and you can try to punish the misalignments, or you can focus on the alignments. So there's all these points where we're not aligning, but there are points where we are aligning. So which are we going to focus on? The alignment or the misalignment? As I'm walking the dog, every time she's relaxed by my side, I'm just grateful. I'm overflowing with gratitude. Oh, you're such a good puppy. You're so great. And at first, I only had a few opportunities to be grateful. There was only a few opportunities to feel that gratitude. And most of the opportunities was just correcting. I had to keep correcting the negative behavior. I had to keep correcting the negative, the pulling, the misalignments of the puppy. But as I continue to make corrections on the negative and focus on the positive, things started becoming easier and easier because each time I'm focusing on the positive, this is only the beginning of the positive. This is just the beginning. This is just the bottom floor. I have nowhere to go but up. And so as you continue to focus on that positive, you just get more and more opportunities to be grateful for. And then all of a sudden, you're no longer making corrections and you're only having a really good walk where the puppy is by my side and not pulling and is very relaxed, and we are in alignment together. We have a rhythm together. And this is where it comes back to the principle of rhythm. We now are in rhythm together. We have aligned ourselves. Now, we could align ourselves in a misalignment. We could be, this could be a really big fight. This could be a really big thing where there's so much resistance and fighting and conflict, where I'm always correcting and I'm focusing on the negative. So I'm correcting and I'm focusing on the correcting, and I'm not being grateful for those times where it does work. I'm only being angry about the times that it does not work. So instead of being able to focus on the positive and then just correct the negative, you're focusing on the negative and you're trying to correct the negative and you're trying to manipulate and control and punish or even trying to manipulate with good things like, oh, keep doing this, and you keep giving treats to try to get them to do the good thing. But then you keep getting angry with the negative, then you're still in a negative focus. And no matter how many treats you give them, you might control them into some kind of a form of alignment, manipulate them through the positive reinforcement. But positive reinforcement isn't necessarily positive focus. You can do positive reinforcement with a negative focus, or you can do positive reinforcement with a positive focus. So you can reinforce with gratitude, or you can reinforce with, oh, finally, you're not being annoying me right now. You're not pulling. You're not being disobedient. But this is, things like the military. What do? They force an unnatural alignment. Governments, they force an unnatural alignment. They use punishment. They use incentives such as paying money to poor people to get them to vote for them. They're using all these different things with a negative focus, and it's going to stay a negative focus. But if we can keep that positive focus, we can really just start to create that which we do want, rather than continue to create further and further illusion, further and further deception, further and further misalignment. If you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you'd like to stay up to date with my videos, please subscribe. If you would like to be notified via email whenever I release a new video, please click the bell next to subscribe. If you have any comments or questions or would like to go into a dialogue about this topic, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. Be safe, be sovereign, be well.